want to hop into a little bit of in-swing today, so putting the club in motion. But before we do that, I always like to just, number one, ask if there's any questions from last time that need to be done. And then we'll do a little bit of a quick review of last week so that we can remind you of some things, and anybody who missed then can kind of get that information as well. And the videos are being sent out as well, and Denise just said that they're embedded in the email for the invite. For the next invite is where those are. So if you're not seeing those, but I'm sure that they'll put them elsewhere as well in the future. But at least you'll know that those are there. So before we jump in, any questions, comments, concerns that need to be addressed from last week? Everybody's practicing feverishly all week, right? Good. So if we go into just a real quick overview or a review of what we talked about last week, we talked about pre-swing fundamentals. So we talked about our grip, so our lead hand kind of being in the fingers, and then that heel pad of that hand up on top. And when we do that, we actually have leverage on the golf club, so we don't need to squeeze it in order to control it. That doesn't mean we don't have a firm handle on the golf club. We're going to swing it really fast around our body, so we want to have a good handle on the golf club. But when we have that leverage, it allows us to hinge properly, which you're going to see today is super important, and also then to be able to control the club face, which is going to be super important as well. And then our trail hand, we just slid down and we kind of covered our thumb, and we call that the little hot dog in the bun, right, where your thumb fits right in the lifeline of your hand. So we pull that in, and then we talked about you can do a 10-finger grip, where all your fingers are on the golf club, which is different than a baseball grip. Baseball grip, the thumbs are out, which is sometimes something that you might need to do if there's injury or I have a player with arthritis really bad in his fingers, so putting it on top of each other is not, doesn't feel good, so we just take them out. That's okay. And then, so if you can do the 10-finger grip, you can interlock the index finger and the pinky finger, which is very common. And then you could also overlap, which is pinky on top of the index finger. All of those are very common grips. There's other things out there that people do, reverse overlap, there's all sorts of stuff that you can do. But those are the most common for sure. So, and again, remember the function of the grip is to be able to hinge without face rotation. We don't want the face moving. So we talked about club face, so without getting into weeds of crazy numbers, but if your club face is off of just a small number of degrees, it can take the ball from being in the middle of the fairway to being in the middle of the lake, right? So if your club face is closed 6 degrees, you could actually take that and put it all the way into the lake. Now, we say 6 degrees, understand that the second hand on a clock, one tick of that second hand is 6 degrees. So we're talking about, we throw these numbers around like, oh, close the club face or your path or your face and all these numbers because we have all the launch monitor data today, all that good stuff. But the numbers are actually really small. And so you got to be careful overanalyzing and then also chasing numbers. But rotating that club face is something that we want to make sure that we avoid over rotation, and good grip can really help with that. So then we talked about our setup position. We put our ankles under our shoulders. We did our side tilt, which was tilting our spine away from the target. And then we did our forward tilt, which is what I would refer to as closed car door, right? So we just push back behind us so that then we can let our arms hang under our shoulders, knees are unlocked, and then we're in a good balanced position, heel toe, right, left, at our setup position. So any questions on what we talked about with pre-swing? Good? All right. So let's hop in and talk about full swing. And we have 5 different drills or homework assignments that I'll give you, or things that you can work on in your golf swing. But we want to talk about concept first. understanding what's happening in the golf swing. We talked a little bit about this last week as a little bit of a tease as far as why it was important to be able to get the club hinged properly because of that vertical motion. But I break the main movements of the golf swing. There's lots of ancillary movements that are all important, but the main movements are rotation and then some vertical movements. So I break those down into merry-go-rounds and Ferris wheels, right? So the merry-go-round is going to go around. Ferris wheels are more up and down. And in the golf swing, our body is the merry-go-round. So that is the around part of the golf swing, moving around. Our arms are the Ferris wheel moving up and down. So they move this direction, up and down. And so if I do this, this is a funny looking golf swing, right? But if I can do this part and this part at the same time, now that looks a little bit better. Now, is that 100% accurate? No. And I say that because I didn't take the club up over my head, right? It wasn't straight vertical. There is a little bit of a round movement with the arms. There is a little bit of straightening with the body and things like that, but we don't need to think about any of that. Conceptually, it's the body does the around part, the arms do up and down. Because most people see the circle of the golf swing, right? It makes this circly type of motion. So there is an assumption, whether it's conscious or subconscious, that our arms swing that circle around. And they really don't. Our body carries our arms into that circular motion. So if you look, I've kept my arms right in front of me as I rotate, and then I get up to the top of my backswing. So if you break it down, and things don't happen in these order where one happens and then this happens, it all kind of mushes together. I'm breaking them apart for you to see that. So conceptually, when we do some of these drills, it makes sense why we're doing these drills. So body's going to rotate, arms are going to fold up and down. So we have to be able to say, okay, well, how do I make that happen properly? And when we get into golf posture, it really gets tricky. Because I can say, okay, rotate, that's really pretty simple, doing this. As soon as I get into this, and I rotate, now there's some angles there that are much different than they would be if you're just standing up and down. So one of the first drills to do is to put the club across your shoulders, just like this. So our arms are just folded across our chest, and then I just kind of let the club set in my thumb, in between my thumb and my index finger, and I put it right across my shoulder so that then I can see that rotation and also the tilt that is created when we rotate because of our address posture. So because we go forward, when I rotate back and I bring my lead shoulder under my chin, my trail shoulder is behind my head, and notice that the club is angled, not at the ball, but definitely towards the ground. I always say, you want that pointing around where the bucket of balls is, right? So if I'm hitting a ball here, I've got a little bucket of balls right out here. It's somewhere right around there. Everybody is a little bit different. We talked last week, depending on how tall you are, how much your shoulders are going to be tilted, and depending on what your wingspan is. So it's a general area, but that gives you a guide that we shouldn't be level, and we're not trying to point it all the way down right at the golf ball. This is a really simple drill that is not necessarily easy to do. It looks really easy to do, but there's a lot happening when we just turn here and turn our back to the target, because we need to do it in posture so we can keep this angle. So I like to set up where there's a mirror to my trail side, so that when I turn back, I can see and I can check in the mirror, where am I? Do I have my tilts? Am I still in my posture? Did I get taller? What happened? And then you can also do it if you want to get fancy and have mirrors on both sides, or just do some that way and then turn the other way, so then I can go back swing, forward swing, and then I can see this on the forward side as well, because this is there on this side. Now when we finish the golf swing, momentum will pull us up and we'll finish standing tall here. But in the drill, we don't have momentum. So we want to make sure that we just maintain these angles, because that's what we're training. This will happen as we swing, just because the club is going to come over and we'll stand up tall as we see that position up with players on TV, and even some out on the golf course here, I'm sure. But if we can do that drill, that gets us rotating with good angles. And rotation, we're going to talk a lot about today, because rotation, golf is a rotary sport. So without rotation of the body, our arms start rotating, and they're not supposed to rotate in the golf swing. They're supposed to be more of a vertical hinder. So when our arms start to rotate, we start to get our elbows down behind us and back, and we see chicken wings. People talk about chicken wings on the backswing and on the forward swing. That's a lot of that is caused by the lack of rotation in the body. So then the arms have to move around your body, which that's not what they're supposed to do in the golf swing. So first drill is just a shoulder tilt drill where we're just putting the club across your shoulders. And then being able to check that in the mirror is a great way to do that. Then this next drill is, we call it a wall rotation drill because we do it on the wall. I'm going to do it on the chair so that you can see what I'm doing here. The setup is where we're just going to get set up into our good posture, and then we just walk back to feel your tailbone touching the wall. And I do this on a wall because I'm going to use the wall up here as well, and so we'll talk about that side of it so you can see it. But we just get set up, and I generally like something in my hand but not a golf club, because a proper golf swing, you will hit the wall. So I don't want any invoices for holes in walls, so don't use a golf club. We just have, like at our academy, we just use a little piece of PVC pipe that's this big. You could use a pencil. I like something in there just so that our hands are working kind of the way they would in a golf swing. So I'm going to use a golf club because I don't have a wall here, but don't do that at home. So when we get set up, we're going to have our backside on this wall, for me the chair, and then when we do our rotation, just like we did with the club across our shoulders, when we do that, I'm going to feel that my right side is still, as a right-handed golfer, is still touching the wall. So I'm here, and I'm still touching the wall. And I just do this in the backswing, really, for the main part for this drill. And when I do this on the wall, what I'll do is I'll take a club, and I'm going to lean it right here next to my trail hip. And I do that because I want that to be a little bit of a guide for me to see if I'm moving too much side to side. So we want to maintain contact with the wall, but if I swing and I go this way, I created too much of a gap in between me and the golf club. So if I get that there, and it's more than an inch, probably too much. I also don't want to go and push the club or cover the club. So I like this. Again, mirror work to me is really, really important. So I would have a mirror right in front of me, and then we set up this here. And if you have, like, depends on the wall you're using, you might have a pattern on the wall. You could just use that pattern. You're looking in the mirror and you can see that pattern, and it'll work for you. So we're maintaining contact with the wall, but we're not really moving this way or this way with our lower body. It kind of stays in the same spot-ish. It's kind of a gray area. So the way I describe this is the hips are really confusing in the golf swing. But if we had an underwater camera and we were taking a picture or taking a video in the water, and there's a fish in there and it's on a hook, and we're taking a picture of it and the fish is just sitting there. But in reality, the fish is pulling really hard away from the line, and the fisherman is pulling the line really hard towards the boat, and if you videotape it, it's just kind of sitting there doing nothing. And that's kind of the view of your hips here. So what's happening is, and I'm going to turn this way so you can see, so my right cheek as a right-handed golfer is actually moving towards the target, but my center kind of shifts just a little bit away from the target. But it does it simultaneously, so it looks like it's not going either way. It's just kind of staying in the same spot. Does that make sense? I know that that's kind of like, confusing when you talk about it, but I just want you to understand the feedback, because that's what's going to be so important. When you're doing practice, it's feedback. 4-step process to learning that we need to go through. We can do this, and this will expedite your performance tenfold. Understand concept. So the concept is we're rotating, we're maintaining contact with the wall, and we're not really moving this way or this way based on where that club is. Do it. So we have to move, right? So we understand concept, then we move, we attempt it, then we have to get feedback. The feedback in this drill is, okay, where's the golf club? I'm looking in the mirror, am I doing the things that I'm trying to do? And then most importantly, fix it. So that's the fourth step in the process of learning. So if I go here and I'm set up and I turn, I go like this and I look in the mirror, I'm like, wait a minute. The most common reaction that I get from my students when I see something like that is they go here, like, I did it wrong. Again, I did it wrong. And it's like, well, you did, but there was a chance to save it. But we missed that opportunity. So what we did is we just ingrained another old rep. And if we keep doing that, then we're never going to learn the new signal. So what we need to do is be able to go here and go, oh, that's not right. Right. Oh, right there. Okay, right there. Now we're tending to the new signal that we're trying to build. And then we can try to repeat that again and repeat it again. And that's how we learn. Not too exciting, but that's how we learn. So that's what we want to do. Now, the checkpoints here, we talked a lot about the lower body, but we'll be able to take your hands, and your hands would actually meet the wall up here, which is why I like having something in your hands. So as you turn and rotate, boom, you can put your hand right up on the wall there. So you're going to be able to get that feedback of, okay, did I maintain contact with the wall? Is my back facing the target, or my hands on the wall? So when we go through, we've done club across the shoulders, and then now doing this, so it's kind of like you do club across the shoulders, I like that first. Then we go ahead and do this, because now we can kind of put it into motion and kind of match up, okay, I'm doing this, but I'm also moving my arms and I'm feeling the wall. I love circuits. So you can take these 5 drills that I put into this week's session, and you can create a circuit. It's like do 5 of these, 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 and then go back around and do it again. And that's actually a better way to practice. You know, I love my students when they say, it's like, okay, I'm gonna do 100 of these, right? And they're gonna go, and I'm like, okay, that sounds good in theory, but the reality of it is when you get to about number 8, you're gonna be thinking about, it's like, you know, what do I need to get from the grocery store today? You know, and so it's like you're going through the motions, which is better than not going through the motions, but if we're not focused on it, it takes longer for us to get it. If you're gonna practice, I want you to get there as fast as possible. If you're gonna practice, let's get better. If not, just go play and have fun, and that's fine too. But if you're gonna practice, let's get better. So we want us to be really focused on the task at hand. So we've got club across the shoulders, checking that in the mirror, and then we have our wall rotation where we're sliding. And I like, and I know it's probably hard to hear this, but I like when you're doing this, you wanna actually hear your hip and your backside kind of sliding on that wall. I get a lot of people that kind of, it's like they jam their hip into there. I call it a hip check. It's like they kind of like jam it in there, and then everything's locked up, and they're like, I can't get to the wall. And I'm like, yeah, no, I wouldn't be able to get there either, right? But old guy with bad back, I can still get there as long as I'm moving everything properly. You know, we can still get there. There's very few people, by the way, that I have worked with over 25 years of doing this, that can't reach a full rotation in the top of their backswing, that they're limited. Have there been some? Absolutely. There are some back injuries, you know, hip injuries, things that are physically limiting their ability to get there. Almost, if I had to guess a number, I would say 95+% of the players that I've worked with that do not get the full rotation to there, it's a mechanical interference, not a physical limitation. Because there's a habit, right? There's an old habit that gets in there, and so therefore they're fighting that old habit, and they're like, I can't get there, right? You know, but I'll get in there and I'll move them around, and I can feel it, you know, and we can actually assess them. We can go through, just like what we talked a little bit about with some of those assessments on week 1. I can tell it's like, okay, yeah, you have enough mobility for golf, right? We just need to know if they have enough mobility for golf. We're not doing gymnastics. They don't need to be, you know, super crazy limber, but we need to have enough mobility for golf, which is essentially, from a rotary standpoint, it's can I rotate my lower body 45 degrees and then my upper body 45 degrees. That's what we need.
Your question might be too far ahead,
Yep.
but you know, for like I slide my hands, right?
Yeah.
And so getting into that position off the wall drill, will that naturally help as you go through? I'm sure you probably did that, but will that getting set there help as you follow through with it?
So when you say you slide towards the target in the downswing, or are you talking about away from the
Downswing.
target?
I tend to, instead of turning my head, I tend to slide my head. So
Yep.
if I'm wondering if I get that set position off the wall position, if that will naturally help me turn as I come through.
So,
that's another step.
potentially, but this is more of a backswing drill.
Okay.
Since you asked, I can show you a very simple, again, a lot of simple things, but not easy, simple drill to help with sliding. Actually, I can show you two little ones. So for sliding, so for those of you that maybe didn't hear that or are questioning, sliding is when you move too much laterally towards the target in the downswing. So we have too much lateral movement towards the target. There is lateral movement towards the target, we should have that, but there's also a point where you get to it is too much. That's what you're talking about, right? Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll take a chair and I'll put it right on that lead hip. And you can actually, if you use a chair, make sure it's the right size. You don't want to hit your hands or have the club hit the chair, but you can actually swing all over. You can actually hit balls. We do it all the time up at the academy. But we're just putting this here, and first you need to be able to feel it, right? So understand the concept. We don't want to go through the chair, right? We want to, touching it is okay. We don't want it to move. We don't want it to either rock up on the front legs or slide forward. So what we want, and so what I would do is I would take the club away, because we don't want to think about all that. We're just trying to think about this, and we set up. And so when we go forward, we're gonna go here, but we're gonna slide along this chair and feel that we're moving here. And then when I finish, my belt buckle is basically there instead of my hip being over there, so that we can start to get that feel. And then you can start to put the club in your hand, then you can and do it in slow motion, then you can add speed with a practice swing, and then add the ball. And you stair step your way to the golf ball. We always want to go to the golf ball. It's like, give me the golf ball, I need to do it with the golf ball. There's so much interference as soon as you add the golf ball, because we're concerned about ball flight, rightfully so. I mean, we all should be, right? That's the ultimate outcome. But we gotta be able to know if we are even doing it before we worry about the ultimate outcome. So that's a good way to do that. And then the other thing that you can do, and this would be, you could actually do in conjunction with this or on its own. But we just would take our backswing, pause, lift the lead heel off the ground, and then your job is to smash it down, like we call this crush the can, like you're crushing a can. And you want to do that, and then swing and pull that way it pulls back. So when you start to do that, that gets this moving in the direction that it's supposed to go, instead of this way. We can still do it. We can mess up anything, right? So we can mess up the drill and still do that, but it's a lot harder to do. When you start getting that feeling, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, if I do that. Not like I said, oh, take the club away first, right? Take the club away and feel that. It's like, okay, I need to feel this motion. And then it's like, okay, now I can start adding the club back in. So for sliding, I would do, those would be two big ones that we do. If you're out on a practice tee or something, you can take one of those alignment sticks and stick it on the ground so that it's right up here. Just don't let it hang out over here like this, because then you hit it right. You want the end of it right on your hip. The only downside to the alignment stick, sometimes it's harder to feel because it's super light. That's why we use chairs or we'll use swimming pool noodles that are on a stand, that it's a little firmer so that you get some feedback so you can feel it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just didn't, like I said, I don't.
This wall drill that we're doing is more backswing focused. I mean, you could do things with it on the way through too, but there's a wall back there and it kind of gets in the way, right? You know what I mean? So this is a little bit more backswing focused. Good question. All right, so then we want to talk about, so while we put a bow around some of this rotation, right? We know that our body needs to move. When we do, notice every time I've done it, my trail foot is ending up toe in the ground, because my weight is transferring, and we have pressure that moves into our trail side and then back into our forward side. And that is a really important thing to have happen in the golf swing. So before we jump into this next drill, we will need to again talk about some concepts, right? So get a raise of hands. So when we're swinging, we want to hit the golf ball. Are we good? There, we all can agree, hitting the golf ball, good, right? So then the next question is, should we hit the ground? What do you think? Should we hit the ground Well, that would be the follow-up question. But first we gotta know, are we supposed to hit it, right? Should we hit the ground?
Depends on the shot.
So it depends on the shot, which is correct. So which shots will we not hit the ground and which ones will we hit the ground?
Driver, we tend not to.
Driver, yeah, well, driver we should not to, but we don't always not to, right? Sometimes we do hit it, but we shouldn't. You're right. Yeah, driver, and there's one other.
Some chips you don't.
Nope.
Putters.
Putter, that's right. So driver and putter, those are the only two shots where you shouldn't hit the ground. Every other shot in golf, you should hit the ground.
You consider just coming right across the top of the grass, like there are some chips you just go right across the top of the grass, clip the the ball well, but you're not really hitting the ground.
So, just because we're hitting the ground doesn't mean we're taking a divot,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
We don't necessarily take a divot on every shot,
Right.
but we should still hit the ground. So even on a chip shot, a short chip shot like this,
Yeah.
we should still hit the ground. Now you might not notice it afterwards, like you might not show that you hit the ground, but you would have hit
Touch
the ground.
it slightly, I guess you're saying.
That's right. That's exactly right. But we shouldn't, I'm not talking about the blades. I'm talking about the ground, right? So now we say, okay, ball, good, yes, we should hit it. Ground, yes, except for driver and putter. So then the next question is, where should we hit the ground in relation to the golf ball? So if I'm going this way, this is my golf ball, where should I touch the ground? After the ball, and that's correct. So sometimes right under it, some players hit a little bit closer to the ball, but normally after. So then so we know the golf swing goes up, it comes back down, and it goes back up, right? So that means there's a bottom, right? There is the lowest point of the swing. So now, where's the lowest point of the swing? Should be after the ball, right? Because if we started the ground, but how much? These are not swing thoughts, by the way. Concepts. 3 to 4 inches after the ball is the lowest point of your swing. Depends a little bit on the golf club. That chip shot's not going to be 4 inches in front of the golf ball. But any full swing iron should be 3 to 4 inches after the golf ball is the lowest point. Now that doesn't mean that's where we enter the ground, right? We're entering the ground closer to the golf ball, but the lowest point is. Now, that's hard to understand sometimes, but if we were outside, what I would do is I would be able to show you a good divot, and you would be able to see that within that divot, that there's different depths within that divot, and the lowest point of that divot is going to be 3 to 4 inches after the golf ball, or the deepest part of the divot will be. Now, we're not talking about this deep, right? I mean, your divot might only be that deep, and that's okay. But just know that. Now, you can forget that because that we don't think about when we're swinging. But the reason why I brought that up is because for this third drill that we're going to do, this is all about the weight transfer forward. When we hit the golf ball, again, information, not swing thought here. When we hit the golf ball, anywhere from 80 to 90% of the pressure is going to be into our lead foot at impact. We're not trying to start at 50-50 and come back to 50-50. This is not powerful here. Powerful is here. So now I've shifted, and that's why the low point is after the golf ball. The driver ball position is way forward. That's why the low point is not there for a driver. The low point is a little bit behind the ball, just slightly behind the ball. But that doesn't mean we're hitting the ground. We're still in the air, but it's the lowest point. So weight transfer is really important for success and for get the ball to perform. So drill for that is what we would just call toe tap drill. So we get set up, and when we swing back, we swing through. When we come through and finish, we have to be able to tap our toe on our trail foot. When we do this with our little kiddos, with our juniors, we do toe taps, and we'll make them, they have to holler out 3 of their favorite foods before the ball lands. Right? So they sit out here, it's like pizza, hot dog, ice cream, right? You know, it's like what we hear, that type of stuff. And it's like, why do we do that? And it's funny, it's like we do these things with the kids, and then with the adults, it's like we're taskmasters. Like there's no fun in the golf lessons with the adults, just for the kids. But it gets them thinking about just doing this and thinking about other stuff, and just let them swing. Let them be kids. They don't care about for the most part, the failure, right? If they roll a ball and they shank it off to the side, they're just like, give me another one, let's go, right? Whereas adult does that, it's like, oh my gosh, we're in the fetal position and we got to reanalyze everything that we just did. It's like, no. It's like, just hit another one. We're changing stuff. It's okay. But with juniors, they're just like, yeah, bring me another one. So it's just like, we just want them to keep trying to do this. That's it. Just keep trying to do it. We don't care where the ball's going yet. And then all of a sudden the ball starts going good as an outcome, not that they're controlling, but that they're influencing. And it's hard to get into that space sometimes. So, toe tap drill is a good one for us to make sure that we're getting that weight transfer and our balance forward on our lead foot. All right, so we zipped through those three. These last two are the ones that we're going to have you kind of get a little bit more involved in and feel they're a little bit more involved because they're basically the golf swing. These are simulations of the golf swing, a little bit in slower motion, some that you can do with the ball. But there's a lot of moving parts. And again, remember the information that I give you, and it's on all the sheet that we send out that has the drills on there. There's a lot of checkpoints. Checkpoints are not swing thoughts. There may be a checkpoint that becomes a swing thought, but the grocery list of checkpoints are not swing thoughts. Or should not be. If they are, and you mess up, then I'm going to say I told you not to do that. So don't blame me, because it's easy to get caught in that trap. So before we do that, who are my yoga instructors? Right? We have the Cobra position. Everybody know what the Cobra position is? So Cobra position, and I've never done yoga, so you don't have to do yoga to understand and to do this. So yoga, you've all seen it probably on TV where they're in a position and they kind of are arced up this way, and I can't even do it all the way, but you kind of get the idea of what I'm talking about. So that position is one of the terms that we use in golf as the Cobra position, which is the point in the swing when we are at extension being when our arms and glove are extended towards the target after impact. And when we do that, our body is in a very similar Cobra type of position. So we do a little drill that we call L to Cobra. So the L to Cobra is when we go back, the lead arm and the golf club make like a capital L. And then when we swing through to here, we go to this Cobra position. Now, a lot of things that happen for that. Number one, when we do our L swing, it's a shorter swing because we're not doing this at full speed. We don't want to do it at full speed because we can't stop here if we do it at full speed, and it's going to be really important, which you'll see the checkpoints here that we need to look for when we do this in full speed, or when we do this live with a ball, or even without a ball. But the L swing and the back swing is going to be a full turn, so I'm still doing what we talked about with the rotation here, but my lead arm is level to the ground, and it's important that we do a full hinge. We still want to hinge. We want to make sure that we're getting our wrist going this way because we need to train the unhinging on this side. So if we don't hinge, if we just go back to here and we haven't hinged our wrist up this way, then we can't do it. We can't unhinge it on the way down. So it's important that we feel that. So we're going to go back to here to this position, this L position. Then when we go through, we're going through and we stop when the club and our arms are level to the ground, and that's what we call Cobra. Here's our grocery list of checkpoints. So when I come through, at this point, arms, club, belt buckle, shirt buttons, all pointing straight out towards the target. My weight is on my lead foot, and that leg is straight. My right foot, for me as a righty, toe in the ground, and really light. My belt buckle is also closer to the target than my shirt buttons because I'm in that Cobra position. Additionally, my trail shoulder, my right shoulder as a righty, is a little bit lower than my lead shoulder at this time because I'm not finished all the way here. So I'm still going to be a little bit lower. So when I do this, again, at home, I love mirror work. We have our mirror right here, no golf ball. And we just do our L backswing, swing to the mirror, and then I can check, okay, arms, club, belt buckle, shirt buttons, okay? Left leg, right toe, right shoulder, good. I can feel that. So, a lot of stuff happening there, and again, we need to correct it, because this is what you're gonna see when you go and do this in the mirror. You're gonna be like this, and you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't look like what we were talking about. So then it's like, okay. Goodness, what a difference, right? And so then it's like, okay, so now the next one you do, it's like it's closer, and then it's like, and if you keep fixing it, eventually it starts to get there. That's the warning. But you just need to keep doing that. I love this with the golf ball, hitting it at about 50%, but I recommend that you do this at home first, a couple of practice sessions to get comfortable with it, so that you know what your cues are. You're gonna find out, it's like, man, I need to check this and this every time. You might not need the whole grocery list, you shouldn't, I mean, after you do it a few times, but there's gonna be a couple where it's like, man, those are off every time. So that's what you focus on. You don't have to focus on everything, just focus on the parts that you need. But I want you to know all the checkpoints so that you can check them the first few times that you do it. So when we're doing this motion, the one thing that happens a lot is people say, oh, so you want me to lean back? And it's like, no, I didn't say that, but that's what we see, right? When we say, oh, the cobra position, so you want me to lean back. And it's like, well, it's hard to lean back and have all your pressure on your front foot, right? Those two don't go together very well. So it's not leaning back that we're doing. We're actually pushing our hips forward. So remember we talked about the sliding drills with the chair. So my belt buckle was all the way to the chair, so it is moved this way. That's what creates that little bit of curve. Because our head stays relatively steady, our hips move a little bit forward towards the target, and that creates that. Now, does that mean when we finish our golf swing we need to be doing this? No, because as you release after this, you'll start to stack up where everything is kind of over your lead foot. So it doesn't have to stay there. It used to. I mean, think back to all the old pictures, right? The 1970s and 80s, you know, of these. Think of Caddyshack, all the swings in Caddyshack, right? You know, they're all have that, what they call a reverse C motion. Today's golf swing is modified a little bit different because equipment has changed. And so we don't stay in that position, but we still have a little bit of that position in the swing within it. This is a good one that you can do on the wall. So I'm going to show you how to do this on a wall to get this feel, because it looks, again, really simple. So if this was just envision a full wall here, you just kind of take your arms out of it, get them out of there, stand next to the wall, and we rotate back, rotate through. Rotate back, rotate through, and when you do that, it's like, okay, the belt buckle is going to be really close to the wall, but my nose is not. And what you're going to find, if you are a slicer, I almost can guarantee you, when you do this drill the first time like this, you're going to go, and you're going to be like, trying to figure out how to not get your head on the wall. Because slicers notoriously, upper body dominates and it comes this way first before the lower body ever gets going. And so normally this is a really, really difficult one if you're a slicer. So just a good little way to do a modification, especially if you're struggling with the Elda Cobra. Do the Cobra first, get that down. It's like, okay, I need to be able to feel that. Then I can put it in the golf swing, or at least in a partial swing. And then a great way to practice is, so remember this process. Drill with the ball without the drill. So in this scenario, Elda Cobra, we do one drill, no golf ball. We're just doing the drill, we're feeling it, and we're just correcting it. Then it's like, okay, now I'm going to do the drill with the ball, and I'm just feeling, boom, and I hit it. It's like, okay, now I did the drill, and I was doing it with the golf ball. Now just the balls. Now I just go. Now I'm just swinging. So now I just go ahead, boom, and I hit it, and I'm just trying to get as much out of it as I can. Sometimes in the beginning when you're doing something new, I'll do 2-2-1. So it's like 2 drills without the golf ball, 2 drills with the golf ball, hit a shot. 2 drills without the golf ball, 2 drills with the golf ball, hit a shot. This is how we learn, right? It's not mind over matter. You're not going to stand there and say, well, if I just think hard enough about this, I'm going to do it. It doesn't work that way. If it did, I would not be standing here. We have to put the motion into action, we have to get feedback, and then we have to correct it. That's the process. You good? Yeah.
Do you call that you recommend like to start with, like, and then progress
On this
to-
drill?
Yeah, for doing a drill like this, like a 7 or 8 iron, and then move
Yeah.
up, or
Yeah, so for this drill, because we're going at like 50% speed, I don't do it with anything really lower than a 7 iron. So like 7 iron, 8 iron, 9 iron, wedges, all those are all good, anywhere fine. And the only reason for that is you can do it with any golf club. The slower we swing, and the less loft on the club, the ball's just gonna come out really low. And then we get a perception that something's wrong. And so then we start doing something to try to get the ball to not be so low. And so then it just messes with the drill. So when you use something like a 7 or an 8 iron, and you do this even at 50% speed, and you do that, the ball gets up in the air. It's not gonna be super high, but it's an acceptable range in our mind, you know what I mean? So then we don't start skewing the drill. So yeah, and I love it with wedges because really this is your wedge shot, which we're gonna talk about distance wedges in a couple weeks, where we're just kind of boom, and we're hitting that shot and just kind of controlling. It's like boom, 40 yards. It's like, yep, got it. All right, what do I need? 30 yards. All right, boom, this is what I do. So it's really a version of that. A little bit difference in setup, but overall very similar motion. So yeah, so anything lower than that, you can do it with any club, but just know that the ball's going to come out really low.
You talked about like the person that was hitting a slice and they're falling
Yes.
forward. What's the hook if they're pulling it or hooking?
Often exaggerated this, yeah. So very often it's a lot of this, you know, where they're coming back because they're coming around there. Doesn't mean that it will hook it, but that's very often what we see with those that are hitting hooks. Yeah. So remember, direction is mostly club face, but more specifically, without getting into the weeds here, it's the difference between where's the club swinging and where's the club pointing. So think about a slicer. A slicer, where are they swinging? Left. They're actually swinging way left, even though the ball, and I'm talking about a right-handed golfer, even though the ball's going way to the right. So they're swinging to the left, so their path is going left, but their club face is open. And so what they're doing is they're hitting it like this, and that's what creates that spin that goes around. Well, someone who's hooking is the same thing, but the other direction. They're swinging this way with the club face closed, typically. Now, you could be swinging straight down the line with club face closed, and that'll make it hook, or club face open. So you can do that, but the key is the difference between where you're swinging and the club face. That's what curve is. That's what makes the ball curve. And that's why when you see the guys and girls on TV curve it intentionally, right? They can do that. I mean, remember all the times that Tiger would do it, and he has like the little flair for the dramatic, right? But it would be, you know, he would do that to hit that ball that comes around there because he was swinging hard to his left, and that's why he would end up coming up like this. So he would kind of go like that, but the face was open because he had to hit it around a tree, things like that. So if you understand those concepts, you could do some of that, but I would practice it first. The straight ball or 1-2 our target is probably what we need to get down first. But understanding those concepts is what allows us to move the ball in different directions. Field goal kickers, exact same thing. Well, you watch people in football kick field goals, and some of them hit them with a little draw, and some of them hit them with a little fade. And it's the same thing. It's the angle of their foot, the angle that they're swinging, and for them, a little bit, they can lean the ball more one way or the other. The placeholder can, so when they hold it, they'll lean one way or the other, and that helps with that movement. So it's the same concept. And field goal kickers, by the way, are almost always excellent golfers. Because they understand those concepts, they have a lot of time and money, and their job is to hit that ball down those fairways. That's what they do every day, right? So they kind of are used to that type of stuff. So they're actually normally pretty good golfers. So good question. All right. So last one we're going to do all together. So this one we call trail arm drill. I'm going to show you this first, and I'm going to have you get up and have you do this because there's a lot of moving parts to this one for sure. This is probably the one with the most stuff going on because it's pretty much the full swing. So when we do this, we take the club upside down and we hold it down by the club head, but not hold the club head. You want to hold it on the shaft but towards the bottom like this. And then we're going to do that with our trail arm, and then we take our lead arm and we're going to hook it so we're here. This is keeping our arm from being the merry-go-round, right? So if I hook it and lock it in there, the only way for my arm to go over there is for my body to be the merry-go-round. So my torso moves it back here. So I'm gonna set up in my posture. I've got my arm hooked, and then I'm gonna turn and fold. Now, when I do that, we have checkpoints. And again, I love mirror work. So I put the mirror on this side. I'm here, I turn, I fold. Now I'm gonna look. Is my back to the target? My elbow should be about as high as my shoulder. Doesn't have to be perfectly, but we don't want it down here, and we don't want it way up here. It should be pretty close. Notice I have a right angle here and a right angle here. So those two right angles make what I call power box. And I call it a power box because that's where we get our speed. Our speed comes from having this position and then being able to straighten it. Right? I create a lot of speed like that. In fact, what I do for my students when we have this conversation at the academy is we get on the flight scope where it can tell us how far the ball is going, how fast we're swinging, and I will actually hit a golf ball. I'm not going to do this here because I don't want, probably should limit the banging of the carpet in here, but I'll show you what I do when I hit the golf ball, and I just go like this. And I try to do it with as little body as possible. Not because we want to play golf this way, right? But I want them to see, and almost always, so I do it with a 7 or an 8 iron, and I can almost always get that club speed almost the exact same. It's kind of weird, but it's right around 75 miles an hour. And with that club, normally my swing speed is around 83 to 85. So it's really close to the swing speed. Now, I can't control it because my body's not in position, so the club face is moving all over the place, so the ball goes all over the place. But I want them to understand that speed comes from here and moving it properly this way. We tend to think speed comes from here and here, right? And we're doing all these movements and doing all that. That's not where we get our speed. We can get some doing that, but the majority of it just simply comes from the straightening of our trail arm. So, to get in the right spot is super important. So, we're here, we go back, so now we're saying, okay, checkpoints, back to the target, elbows about as high as the shoulder, right angles, and when we do that, notice I have a space between my hands and my head. We always say we want to be able to put a basketball right here. So that's backswing. Downswing. So we go back and check it. When I do the downswing, I've kept my power box. My elbow is in front of my belly button, and my forearm is pointing to the sky. Now this will be a different feel for most players. Back to here, down to here. And then once I'm here, I go here, and again I stop in the same position that we did before, and I'm looking at shirt buttons, belt buckle, arms, club, where's my weight, where's my back foot, so same checkpoints as we go through today. So, we're going to do this together, but I want you to see this first. So it's, again, here, here, and here. And anything that's wrong, fix it. It will have things that are wrong. So we just fix it. And the way we do this drill is we do one like this, then we take the club in our hand, and we do the same thing with the club. And we just go through. That way now I can start to feel the club. This one, it's super light, so I can just kind of focus on what my body's doing. This one is like, okay, there's going to be a golf club during this, right? And then the third one we do is we put both hands on the club, and we go here, here, here. Then practice swing. And now I'm mushing together because no more stop and go because we don't play golf that way. So now I'm going to swing. So I do my practice swing, and then I just step up to the ball, and I hit it. And then repeat. 5 swings for 1 ball. Most people don't practice that way. Most people don't get better, right? It's not from a lack of practicing. For those of you I know that you've been over 4 bridges, you see that driving range just packed. It's not from a lack of hitting golf balls. But a lot of times it's, what are we practicing? And then are we practicing the right way? So when we go through that whole sequence, you're doing the whole swing. Again, first couple times you do it, go through and check everything. Then after a while, it's going to be, okay, I just need to watch this part, right? Because that's the part that I'm not doing well. And then that becomes way simpler. In the beginning, it's a lot, but that's okay. Because I know you're up for it. The checkpoints are intentional, right? I'm not just nitpicking. If we don't turn our back all the way to the target, but our arm gets up here, look at what it is. So if I don't turn my body at all, now look where my arm is. It looks really good. It's like, okay, power box is there, space is there, that's good. Well, as soon as I turn my body, guess what? Now my arm is way over here. I am in trouble. I have two choices from here. From the top of the backswing, if my arm is all the way back here, I can throw it out here and come over the top and slice it, which is what most people do. Or, because I need to get down to the ball, but when I'm back here, my body's in the way. So now I have to slide to create space and come down in here. So neither of those I would recommend. But that's why we need to get our back to the target. And you're gonna feel like your arm, if there was an arrow coming out of your arm, that it's going straight back. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you videotape yourself hitting and going live, it will not be here most likely. And that's okay. This is training. Some of you may, if you have, it depends on how your body moves, right? If you have a lot of external rotation in your arm and things like that, you can get into that position. Most players, it's pointed kind of diagonal. But training, we want to train it all the way to here, right? Because we know we're not going to get all of that when we go live. So if you don't train there, you're not going to get as much. So if you train to here, then it's still going to be a little bit back this way. So that's why that turn is important. All right, so let's do the downswing. So we're going to get set up here again. We're going to take it up to the top, check your positions, and then now bring your elbow down in front of your belly button, and we're going to keep our power box. A lot of people, especially some of the young junior players, their legs fly, right? And they're like here, and you know they haven't gotten to the ball yet, and they're like over here like this. And it's like, well, that's good if you can sync it up. It's not synced up, so it's no good. So we literally have them swing, and I tell them that they have to swing back, hit the ball, and then move their legs. So it's like, okay, this is your golf swing, right? So which we know that doesn't look correct. And then, but they do it, and they're like, oh, that feels terrible. So what do? Videotape it. And where are they? But it feels like they're back here. Because here's what happens. This is just the reality of learning movement skills, whether you're playing a musical instrument or you're playing golf or whatever sport it is. If you're here, to get to here, it feels like here. Because feels and reals don't match. So it's like we've got to feel this, right, in order to get to there. And so that's why I was just saying, watch the lower body, because if you train it in the drill for the lower body to fly, then it's going to go so early. And the reality of it is our lower body, we want it to go. It has way less to travel than our arms do, right? Our arms are up here, and they got to get all the way back down here. So if this takes off early and fast, there's no way we can catch up in time. So yeah, really good. This is the hard part, right? So it's all weird, right? But getting this back down here, is hard because everybody wants to do this. They're like, everybody's wanting to throw that club out and really get that going out this way, but it shouldn't do that. The golf swing goes back and we fold, we start down here, and then it's gonna straighten out this way. We tend to want to straighten it early. The club gets long. Now we're gonna hit the ground because it's long, so then we have to shorten our arms, and then that's why we end up with our arms all jammed up on this side. So if you've seen your golf swing and it's in video and you're jammed up like this, there's two things that create that. One is lack of rotation, right? So if my body isn't rotating, my arms are gonna fold. And or the club has come out early, you're gonna hit the ground, so then you have to pull up. Like people always say you're lifting your head. I would say of the people who have been told that they're lifting their head, 90% of them are not lifting their head. Because our head has no control over the over the club, right? I mean, I can lift my head all day long right now, right? And the club's not moving, right? What's happening is we go like this, so we see this vertical movement, so everyone's like, you're lifting your head, or people just top it, and you're like, well, you're lifting your head, right? You must be. And it's like, well, you don't must be. I mean, most of my players that I see that have been told, keep your head down, keep your head down, keep your head down, we videotape and draw a line on top of their head, and guess where their head is at impact? Lower. And they still top it. Right? But they've been told keep their head down, so they're trying to be a good soldier. And it's like, okay, keep my head down. all right? And it's like their head is buried down in them, right? And it's not that it's wrong advice, it's just we don't take it for what it is, right? It's like, this is what's happening. We're either bending our arms or we're moving up. That's a body movement. Yeah, the head is on top, so we see that. But if you just try to bury your head, you can still do all the same movements, so it doesn't fix anything. So that's why I always tell people, don't tell them to keep their head down, right? Well, keep your eyes on the ball, good, I'm all for that. But we gotta find out what really is happening. And generally, we're going long to short, and that's why we top it. We're trying to go short, meaning everything is still has angles, to long and extended on this side. So very different as far as the way things happen for most players. So I would venture a guess, everybody that went through that felt something different, right? And again, a lot of times it's, I can't get to that spot, right? And it's hard in the beginning. There wasn't anybody, because I can feel when I put on that I felt here that I'm worried about you being able to get to that spot physically. Again, mechanically is a whole nother story. Because mechanically is, I have a habit, and so my body wants to do that habit even though I'm trying to tell it to do something different. So if you're having trouble, break it down. When in doubt, shorten it or make it slower. So if this drill is hard, go here first and make sure, okay, did I rotate? All right, good. Is my arm still in front of me? Okay, good. Full. It's like, okay, good. All right, well, look at that, I did it. You know, how about that? And then I go to do it together and it's all a mess again, right? So it's like, take your time, do it here, do it here. We can break it apart until we learn to feel those positions. And again, if we're playing golf and we get half of this stuff, you are going to be in the top 10% of all golfers. So it's not about getting it perfect. It's not about owning everything. But I want you to know what to do so the closer we get to it, the better off we're going to be. And the better the ball is going to perform, which is ultimately what we want. Make sense? Easy, right? So, what I want from you all is to work on these between now and next week. Next week, we'll do more of them interactive with you doing them. Now that you'll understand them a little bit better, you're going to be able to do them a little better so that we can kind of find out where your challenges might lie. And then we're going to also add driver to the mix next week so that we can say, okay, what's different with driver versus anything else? Because it is a little bit different. The swing is essentially the same. This that we're doing right here is your driver swing as well. But there are some little differences that we need to just be aware of with the driver. So we're going to go through, so we'll continue full swing next week, and then we'll talk more specifically about driver as well. Good? All right.
You mentioned all these checkpoints.
Yes.
Is there, and I know we'll get the video, so I guess we could make our own, but do you have any lists of
Yes, so the checkpoints are on the sheet I know when Danielle sends out, I think it's in the invite, there should be a sheet, there should be a PDF that has the week 3 clinics, and it has all those drills in there with checkpoints on it. Yeah, if it doesn't, let me know, and then, because I haven't, but yeah, I know Danielle's sending that out. I think when she sends out the reminder about the show, I don't see the email when it comes out, but I think that's when it is. So yeah, so it is in there, but if not, yes, I do have it, and I'll send it to you, because yeah, it's not something that you're gonna have off the top of your head. It's a lot of checkpoints in the beginning. Good? What else? What other questions can I answer? Good? All right, we'll see you next week.
Do we need to bring a driver with us next week?
You don't need to bring a driver because we're just going to talk about the differences on that. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I actually crashed out in the
Oh, good. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, yeah, you can reply to her and say, I didn't receive the clinic notes. And she'll send them to you. She has them all. Yep.
When I went into the rain, I